I stopped a robbery at my part-time job due to the individual's plan of action. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a real world's dumbest criminals moment? When I worked at Hollywood Video, before that evil corporation went out of business, a man came into my store and bought one bag of popcorn. When I opened the register, he pulled a box cutter out of his pocket and told me to give him all the money. My first reaction was to laugh. I couldn't believe I was being robbed. He then waved the box cutter around and swore he wasn't horsing around, to which I told him he wasn't getting anything. He said he'd cut me, and I told him good luck climbing over the counter to get me. He then placed his hands on the counter and leaned towards me. I grabbed a box cutter of my own and said, "Look at that, a Mexican standoff." Now here is where it gets silly. The man asked if I was threatening him. I said, "No sir," still laughing at the situation. He then proclaimed he was calling the police, and I said, "Please do." He did, and he waited for the police to arrive. He told them I brandished a box cutter and threatened his life. I then showed the fine officer our security footage, and wouldn't you know it, he arrested my new friend. That's my favorite work story. Call it bullshit if you want. So, any great stupid criminal stories? There were two guys from my high school that robbed a little convenience store. They had ski masks and guns, and the robbery went pretty smoothly for them. But they also decided to wear their Letterman coats with their names on the back. They were later arrested. I was parked in the far end of a parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store, sitting in the driver's seat, checking a few emails and letting my window defrost. I had the window rolled down just a tiny bit. Basically, enough for someone to fit their arm through, if they really tried. A guy approaches from the back. So I hear him and look that way. He tells me to get out of the car. The door is locked and he's holding a knife towards the window. He doesn't have a firearm. I just kind of look at him and say, "No," with a confused look. My firearm is in my shoulder holster, but my coat is buttoned up. He awkwardly tries to open the door, can't, then actually sticks his arm in through the tiny part of the window that's rolled down. I immediately hit the button and roll it up, and so he's just stuck there, screaming in pain, and pounding on the window with his other hand. He finally drops the knife, and so I let the window down a bit, and he runs off. In college I worked as a loss prevention guy for one of the big boxes. You know, sit in a little room and watch cameras to catch shoplifters. We were having a problem with customers' wallets being stolen out of the men's fitting rooms. The victim would go in, try on a new pair of pants, come out to show his wife, and when he went back into the fitting room his wallet would be gone. So, one afternoon, I get a call from the sales staff about a fight in the men's fitting room. I run down there to find a 6 feet 2 inches black guy with a 5 feet 2 inches white guy in a headlock. The black guy caught the white guy coming out of his room with his wallet. Turns out, the black guy's wallet was his Secret Service badge and credentials. Oops. A couple of people broke into my storage facility once. They cut through the fence and was going through units when they realized there was a camera mounted near them, pointed right where they were standing. They panic, cover their faces up, and then decide to get rid of the camera. They climb up on something and start trying to tear the camera down. While doing this, there is nothing covering their faces anymore, and they are literally staring into the lens of the camera, no more than 3 feet away. I once foiled a clever plan by an elderly man at the department store I used to work at. He had a blazer with countless hidden pockets, and he was filling them with bottles of oil of Olay moisturizer. The loss prevention guy called me to help corner him. As he was leaving the door, he saw that I was looking at him and started to run. We ran after him, and he looked back at us. That's where he ducked up. He tripped over his own feet and fell like a sack of potatoes. Most of the moisturizer bottles exploded, and he was lubed neck to knee. He smelled fantastic, though. Edit, grammar, spelling. I'm just imagining the cops trying to hold him down. But it must have been tough to hold on to him after that. This may or may not have been my grandfather. He is always filling his jacket with stuff. I guess you just get to an age where, duck it, I'm old, becomes your motto. Had a drunk guy try to steal a bottle of vodka we wouldn't sell him. He grabbed it off the poor cashier and ran for the door. Fairly standard tactic. What he did, however, was stop in the door to taunt us with his brilliant scheme. Literally turned in the door to stop and go woo and give us the finger. Whereupon, he was hit in the chest by the security guard and Big Rab, the 6'5" guy who stocks the alcohol aisle. He managed to scramble away from them and down the car park ramp, however. Real shame, because our car park ends in a 15-foot high fence to stop people climbing over it onto the railway tracks on the other side. Utter ducking Belland. His girlfriend didn't even wait with him. She just bought her stuff and went. An old co-worker told me that a guy once went up to a register with a $50 bill, placed it down, held up the cashier, who gave him the money in the register, and left. The total in the register had been about $37, and the guy had left without his $50. Dumbass stole, minus $13. This one actually happens a lot, but it happened to me one night several years ago, during a graveyard shift. I was working alone on a Sunday night, at a gas station. Now this wasn't a bad area, but it wasn't great either, so the GM figured that they didn't need to people watching the store. I disagreed with him, but I digress. I was in the back of the store mopping, doing my best to keep an eye out for people approaching the store, so I could run back to the registers before they got inside. Anyway, I'm mopping when a van suddenly pulls up in reverse to the store. Just as I started to put the mop aside. Literally, no more than 2 seconds after this, the doors to the back open up, and 2 dudes, with sweaters tied around their heads, jump out the back. They rush inside the store, yelling, run up to the counter, and grab both of the teller machines. They rip out the power cords, run out of the store with their loot, and jump into the back of the van. It speeds off and they hit the road. All of this happened in about 20 seconds, and I just stood there and watched it. What these idiots didn't realize is that the ducking machines are separate from the cash drawer for this very reason. They effectively made off with $0, but did me a favor, because I didn't have to work for the next 2 days, since the store couldn't operate until they got the new machines in. Idiot thieves stole inconsequential registers, thinking that they were getting the money in the drawer, under the counters, with them. This actually just happened to me, this morning in my cab. Had a really young snobby guy in the taxi, first year university at a guess. He was pretty wasted and fairly abusive. Got to his parents' house in a decent area of town, and he had no money on him, so nipped inside to get some. Back and forward various times, still no money, all the time giving me abuse. Finally he coughed up just over half the fare. "That'll have to do for you," he said. "You can call the police if you want, but I doubt they would waste their time on chasing up a few extra pounds in a well-to-do middle-class area such as this. Go on, toddle off then," he added, motioning for me to leave. I did. As I drove away, he stood triumphantly in his doorway, a broad smile on his face, and his middle finger extended proudly in my direction. Completely oblivious to the fact that, minutes earlier, he had handed his iPhone over as collateral. I one time, while sitting in my cruiser, witnessed a man walking around a used car lot at night in the middle of winter. It had snowed for a while and was still snowing at the time. Before going to talk to him, I radioed one of my buddies to come meet with me and watch him for a minute. The guy opens one of the car's doors, which is unlocked, and proceeds to start hot-wiring the car as we start to drive over. He gets the car started, puts it in drive, and floors it. He forgot to wipe the snow off the windshield and drove straight into a light pole about 4 feet in front of the car he stole. Whoa. You made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. Thanks for watching, mate. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more curated content.